students, here we are proceeding looking on the oxygen transportation within the body of a vertebrate. And we have seen that about 98% oxygen it is transported by the hemoglobin, which is the structure which is found in the red blood cell. And we have seen the previous session the questioning of the hemoglobin together with the oxygen in the formation of oxyhemoglobin. And we have seen that we're going to see this figure 6.4, which show the balance dissociation curve of oxygen dissociation curve of the hemoglobin, kwa maana kwamba pale ambapo panakuwa na low concentration of the oxygen ndipo ambapo ile oxyhemoglobin ina tend to dissociate, kwa maana kwamba inavunjika kuja kwenye its original shape, na ndio maana tulisema kwenye ile equation it is the reversible equation. Now let's see this figure. Now you can see this one is the figure 6.4, the oxygen dissociation curve of the hemoglobin. The oxygen dissociation curve of the hemoglobin, as you can see in the horizontal here, it shows the partial pressure of the oxygen, that is kPa. The E ndio partial pressure ya oxygen starting from 0 up to 15. But here we have the percentage of saturation of hemoglobin with the oxygen. So here the percent of saturation of oxygen within the hemoglobin. So now this one we are saying that this is the partial pressure, kiwango cha ile oxygen, let's say within the alveoli. So now you can see as the partial pressure increases of this oxygen, also the oxyhemoglobin it tend to be formed. But at the peak now you can see we have this like S shape. This is S shape. Why is it S shape? Kiwango kikizidi cha oxygen, ile hemoglobin itakuwa haina tena uwezo wa kucarry amount of oxygen. So meaning that there is a little amount of formation of oxyhemoglobin. So now simply we can say that oxygen is directly proportional to the hemoglobin, kwa maana kwamba kiwango cha oxygen kikiongezeka ndipo ambapo ile hemoglobin itaweza kucarry a lot amount of oxygen. While there is a decrease of the oxygen, also this hemoglobin will not form the oxyhemoglobin, and hence the oxygen could not be transported. So now let's see the explanation from the dissociation curve or the oxygen dissociation curve of the hemoglobin. And now here we are saying that in the oxygen dissociation curve now, the greater the concentration of the partial pressure of the oxygen, the more the saturation with the oxygen of the hemoglobin become. That's why I have said that partial pressure of the oxygen is directly proportional to the hemoglobin. And since here you have seen that the greater concentration of the partial pressure of the oxygen, the more the saturation of the oxygen to the hemoglobin become. That is meaning that ndipo ambapo panakuwa na formation nyingi sana ya oxyhemoglobin pale ambapo kiwango cha oxygen kinaongezeka. Lakini sasa usually the graph is S-shaped or sigmoid. As you can see in this graph, it is a sigmoid, or we can say it is the S-shaped. As the partial pressure of the oxygen it increase, also the saturation of the hemoglobin with the oxygen curve also it tend to increase, and hence oxyhemoglobin are formed and oxygen are transported into a tissue. And now in the oxygen dissociation curve also we can say that the greater the concentration of a partial pressure, the greater the concentration of a partial pressure of the oxygen, the more the saturation with the oxygen the hemoglobin become, but usually the graph is S-shaped or we can say it is a sigmoid shape there. But also we can say that the curve shows the following. So since we have seen that that is just the explanation. As the amount of oxygen it tends to increase, also the saturation of the hemoglobin to oxygen tend to increase. And thereby, what does that mean now is here now we are going to elaborate. And now we can say that at a relatively low concentration, there is uncombined hemoglobin in the blood and little or no oxyhemoglobin exit. You can see in that figure that pale ambapo palipokuwa na kiwango kidogo cha oxygen ndipo ambapo ile hemoglobin pia inakuwa haina uwezo wa kwenda kucombine na ile kiwango kidogo cha oxygen. Kwa hiyo hii inamaanisha nini? Hii inamaanisha kwamba pale ambapo patakuwa kuna kiwango kikubwa cha oxygen kinazidi kuongezeka within the alveoli, ndipo ambapo ile oxygen dissociation curve au ile oxyhemoglobin napo ndipo inaweza ikaenda be formed kwa haraka zaidi. So as here now you can see at a relatively low concentration there is uncombined hemoglobin in the blood and a little or no more oxyhemoglobin. Since remember, one hemoglobin or individual hemoglobin tend to combine four molecules of oxygen. So what if there is a little amount or low amount of oxygen? Hemoglobin haina uwezo wa kucombine na 2 molecules of oxygen, since it has ability to combine it tend to combine about 4 molecules of oxygen. So now this is mostly like to occur in the body tissue where the oxygen concentration is likely to be low. So hapo ndipo ambapo inatokea kwenye zile tissue mbalimbali, kwa mfano kwenye muscles, the skeletal muscles. So kule kwenye skeletal muscles ile hemoglobin haitakuwa na uwezo wa kucombine na oxygen, kwa sababu oxygen nzima oxygen zote ambazo zitakazofika kwenye ile muscles zitakuwa zinatumika kwenye different process. Kwa zile remaining oxygen haziwezi kucombine na ile hemoglobin. And that is the meaning of that graph. And another meaning of the graph, now we can say that at a relatively high oxygen concentration, kukiwa sasa na ile concentration ya oxygen nyingi, what next now? Or what are the results? Now we can say that hemoglobin combined with the oxygen in the blood to form the oxyhemoglobin, simply like that. Kwa maana kwamba kukiwa kuna kiwango kikubwa cha oxygen ndani ya body of an organism, ndipo ambapo ile hemoglobin ina uwezo mkubwa wa kucombine na ile oxygen kutengeneza oxyhemoglobin. Thereby the oxygen are transported then. And therefore most hemoglobin molecules are saturated with the oxygen. So pale ambapo patakuwa na kiwango kikubwa kimeexceed hiyo amount of hemoglobin, kwa maana kama patakuwa na hemoglobin chache lakini patakuwa na oxygen nyingi, kwa ina maana kwamba hemoglobin itakuwa saturated, kwa maana kwamba haitakuwa na uwezo tena wa kubeba oxygen nyingine kupeleka kwenye tissue. And this situation is likely to occur in the lungs where the oxygen concentration is high. Kwa hiyo situation nzima ya kuwa oxygen inakuwa nyingi au hemoglobin now is saturated, it is occurring within the lungs in the structure which is called the alveoli. Kwa maana kwamba ile hemoglobin now hainakuwa tuna uwezo wa kubeba zile 4 molecules of oxygen, but ikizidi hapo hemoglobin haitakuwa tena na uwezo wa kubeba zile amount of the remaining amount of oxygen. And that situation is likely to occur in the lungs, whereby the lungs tend to receive the oxygen from the surrounding. And my student, that is the clarification on the graph or oxygen dissociation curve of the hemoglobin. And by saying so, my student, this marks the end of our today's session. So thank you for your attentively listening and for following us, Educare to Z. Bye bye. Have a nice moment.